Good afternoon. My name is David Siddons, and this is the Better Decisions podcast. Today, I have with me Jason Mattock. Now, you might not recognize his face, but you sure as hell have recognized his videos. For the audience, just explain who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into why we're doing this podcast and what it's all about.
Okay. Yeah, so what I do is in 2020, when everyone was locked in, worrying about what was going on with the world, I had a great idea. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go show off these really beautiful homes while everyone's stuck in their house. I'm going to show them what's out there in Florida specifically, and I'm going to do whatever it takes until I get into the most expensive homes, and then hopefully, potentially sell one, because that would be great. But the goal at the beginning was just like, I want to go into these really nice homes. I want to see how the super luxury rich people are living, and I want to show other people that might never get to see this again in their lives, like what that would look like. Because I saw it in New York, I saw it in California, but I didn't see it in Florida.
Where are you from originally?
Florida.
So you're from Florida.
Born and raised.
But your videos, you have shot stuff in, and this is interesting, New York and California, quite extensively.
Because I've dated around. So like when I date someone in New York.
You dated? Oh, that's why.
Then I'm in New York.
Right.
I'm in New York a lot. You got time to go to New York and then go to California, and there are a lot. And then Atlanta, I dated someone briefly in Atlanta. So I was in Atlanta. I figured, well, I'm here, might as well work.
So you go to cities, and obviously you've gone there for your own personal reasons.
Right.
And in the process, you said, look, I'm going to shoot some beautiful, cool, and particularly expensive real estate,
right,
and then I'm going to put it out online, and hopefully people are going to like it.
That was the goal.
And they did.
And they did.
So you have 288,000 subscribers.
On
YouTube.
I have
188, sorry.
They're all spread across different platforms. On YouTube, it's 188. I wish it was 288.
So you've got 188,000 on YouTube.
Yeah.
What have you got in other social platforms?
On TikTok, it's at 760K.
Okay.
Facebook's 188. Instagram is 150. Is there any other platforms? I don't know.
I don't know. Those are the main ones.
Well. I don't know.
And you produce 259 videos.
Yeah.
Right. Which kind of pisses me off a little bit.
All edited and filmed by myself.
It's impressive because look, I produced 900 videos and I don't have as many subscribers as you do. But what you've done is honestly, it's brilliant. It's fascinating. But there's a story behind this that I want to unravel. And there's actually a very motivated reason for us to do this, because ultimately one of the things that we've talked about is the ability to partnership. Anybody watching this podcast will know I'm a complete nerd when it comes to the numbers on the market, figures, stats, numbers, dissecting neighborhood by neighborhood, price point by price point, really knowing it so you can almost ask me any area and I'll tell you what things are worth. What's interesting is that every house is unique and different. Every property is different. Every condo is different. And so the product that you're shooting varies enormously. And once you get to the upper level, it's not Lennar homes you're shooting. These are like almost everything that you've shot of the 259 videos is $10 million plus properties.
Right.
So everybody wants to know, I'm sure, like, what's it like shooting these types of homes? And I guess importantly, what have you learned from it? Like,
right,
let's go inside your brain and help the audience understand what you've seen for the last 4 years of someone who has shot, videoed 259 very expensive pieces of real estate across multiple states.
Yeah, I think the most obvious one is that sort of desensitized to it. Everyone who starts, I mean, if you think about it, like even in high school, like you always have that one rich friend or somebody that has like a family member that lives in a nice area and they have like a nice $3 million house, and you go to it and you're like, wow, people live like this. That was the background I was coming from. I never really saw luxury like that before. So when I went to my first listing that I was going to market, it was $10 million, and I walked in at $10 million in 2020 is like $100 million today. But
yeah, we're going to talk about that because it's changed a little bit too.
I mean, but I walked in and I was just like, I really couldn't even. I was there filming a video, but it just felt like I was filming a video. It didn't feel like this was a home that people actually live in and spend their days in. So that was like a huge thing for me in the beginning. But now, as you can see, like I've been to like $60 million houses, and it's kind of like you just go, you look around, you're like, oh, okay, it's just another house again. Let's start the video. So it's kind of been like almost numb to it at a certain point. And what it's taught me is that basically when you're in a world where you're used to a certain type of luxury or finish or level or lifestyle, it ends up being the norm. So like what I thought was normal before I started is not what I think is normal now. And so my ambitions have changed. What I want changed. What I know is out there has changed. I've learned things that I didn't even know existed before, features in a house that I didn't even know people had. The fact that bedrooms have wet bars and stuff like that. That's not a thing that most people are aware of. And it's just like, once you see it, you're like, all right, well, I never want to live in a place without a wet bar in my bedroom. So,
yeah,
little things. So
that's the thing. When you've experienced high level finish, and it's good that you've seen that, because from a point of view, when it comes to actually selling, you can relate product to other product. Right. That's really what you're doing. When you are an agent and you're actually creating comparables, a CMA, what happens with a lot of agents, honestly, 95% of the agents, maybe more, they will go into the MLS, they'll take a listing that they're using to compare it to, and they will take a spreadsheet and they'll go, interior square footage, adjusted square footage, does it have a pool? Tick. Does it not have a pool? Does it have a garage? Oh, and then they'll look at the pictures, right? And then they'll go through it and they'll do a kind of a bank calculation of what it's worth, right? That's fine at the lower level. You can do that because it's kind of like comparing one generic product to another.
Exactly.
But at the luxury level, it just doesn't work.
Right.
It's a non-starter. You cannot create that kind of like effective analysis model by doing that, because there are so many unique characteristics. And you know, from having like an inside bowling alley or something, like how do you quantify some of the stuff that you've seen? How do you quantify a 5,000 square foot penthouse terrace?
Right.
How do you quantify, you know, a 10-acre site on the ocean?
I honestly think I've learned, well, what I expect is now it just comes down to people in this market, like when it's something like ridiculous, like $15 or $20 million, it comes down to you're not even listing it based on what it should probably be like at value. You're pretty much listing it trying to find the one person on earth who wants that specific property in that specific time. Like for instance, the one I told you about, the Jade Signature, when I went there, I couldn't, the only person I imagined there was like an oligarch, like, you know what I mean? So then
because it's not really functional, is it? I mean, there's a certain point
20,000 square feet in the sky and $50,000 a month HOA.
So let's go into that, because I want you to go through. Let's go through the two most extreme properties that you've shot. Right. One house, one condo, and then we'll kind of get into some of the other stuff. But
condo for sure.
Because you started mentioning the Jade Signature Penthouse.
Well, it's also my favorite building in Sunny Isles.
Really?
Yeah. Despite popular belief, like everyone likes the Porsche or whatever.
I thought you'd say like Aquilina or something like that.
I actually don't like
the new Aquilina.
It's not your thing. Huge fan. It's very like highbrow. I don't know. That's not my style.
It's very snazzy. The lobby is very snazzy.
Well, the reason I like Jade Signature is because it addresses the fundamentals of why I like Florida, which is I look at Florida like a home base. So like, everyone wants to leave and live here and live there and go to Europe. But for me, having a home base in Florida and then going to Europe for a month, if I had to come back and go to Jade Signature and like see the lobby and see the units, and I would just feel, I'd be like, I didn't even come back from vacation. I'm still on vacation. Like
so it has that
aura when you walk in. So that's why I love the building so much. But so what I did was I ended up reaching out to the sales gallery there, and I went to their penthouse and they let me in. I can't believe it. And it was a 20, like you walk in and it honestly looks like purgatory. It was just endless white. Just endless as far as the eye can see.
Okay, so
white.
Purgatory is just endless white walls.
You know what I mean? Like that's like, you say echo and it never stops. It's like one of those things. So it's just like you walk in, you're like, first of all,
you're in the quantum field all of a sudden.
Is this a lobby or is this amenities? You didn't believe it. But then I'm walking around and it's like each section of the condo was a condo. So like the penthouse. So like when you walk into the living room, that is the entire thing is the size of a normal condo. You walk into the bedroom, the entire bedroom is the size of a condo. Like the bedroom alone was like 4,000
How big? So how big was the unit? It was
21,000.
21,000 square feet inside.
Inside the balcony was 7,000 square feet.
Geez, so that's 28,000 square feet. So
Massive.
the HOA on that must have been.
Yeah, I think it was like 40 grand a month, or it was something. It's up there.
Because So that, what was the price on that unit?
They were asking $26,900 at the time.
$26,900.
But this was in 2022.
I was going to say that doesn't sound that expensive.
No, now
in this day and age.
they relisted for $40,000.
So okay, so that was $26,900,
yeah,
and they've now relisted it. It's currently on the market today.
I think it expired, but they had it back on the market. If you want to look into that, by the
$40 million.
Yeah.
So from an analytical point of view, for example, that's not the most expensive unit out there in the market in 2024. I mean, we saw units at Four Seasons, Surfside.
Yep.
We've
Way
got
more.
Penthouses. The Shore Club Penthouse just on in the press traded for $120 million.
Yep.
So $40 million or $26 million, it seems like today it's all a matter of perspective,
right.
Yep. house. Let's go through the most amazing house.
That's a tough one because the majority of the videos I've done are houses. I'm trying to think if there's anyone that really stood out to me.
I was gonna say we could
honestly, because it's really hard these days to impress me. So when something impresses me,
you had a 60. There's a lot of product, and again, as we scan through, there's a lot of houses that show high numbers that never sold.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going based off like house, location, everything, not just the house, because you could go to a really nice house in Vero Beach. Doesn't have to be the most expensive house. No, I mean, like if I'm in Vero Beach, obviously the houses are monster estates, but do I want to live in Vero Beach? Probably not really. Me personally.
Sorry for anyone who watches this.
It's just I'm under 100 years old, so I don't want to live there. But for me, honestly, I would say in the last year and a half, the nicest house I've been to, the one that was like my dream house, was the one in Coral Gables.
As in Snapper.
It was
a beautiful house.
It just felt futuristic. It had every need addressed. It was super functional. The rooms were the backyard was super private. There were peacocks in the backyard.
Well, the neighborhood has a lot to do with it. So we're actually sitting here as
we're nearby.
It's literally, I was there yesterday. I was there with a client at a house yesterday. So Snapper Creek is a beautiful gated community down off Old Cutler, perfectly located for those people who want to get their kids to the best private schools. Exactly. But it's a mere 10 minutes to South Miami or the heart of Coconut Grove. But it's probably got, landscape-wise, the best, most beautiful trees of any neighborhood in Miami. I defy anyone to find a prettier looking neighborhood than Snapper Creek.
I mean, that home alone, it won. I think it won 2 architectural awards or agricultural awards just for the backyard.
Yeah,
it had like $2 million worth of landscaping. It was beautiful. It was like a sanctuary out there.
And the level, it's interesting to note, even within 4 years, there's an association with big houses and expensive houses, especially with Miami, that they can be a little bit gaudy,
right?
A little bit like all show.
Yeah, I do notice that.
Yeah. So I guess one thing that people like watching it used to be like they watch HGTV and they'll watch the Selling Sunset show, and part of it is to watch people like implode on national TV by just doing awful things that you just go, that's a terrible human being.
Right.
But at the same time, they like to look at outrageous real estate and sit there and go, isn't that just pointlessly expensive? And I know there's an element of that can exist where you just go in and go, this is, again, it's gigantic, but do you really want it or need it?
I mean, I went to a house that was, I don't know if I can say this, I went to a house that was owned by a KGB member, and it was all gold. The whole house.
Really?
The whole thing interior was gold. And I just walked and I was like, this is...
Which state was...
I was in Lighthouse Point, Florida.
That was in Florida? Yeah. Okay, cool.
And I met the guy and I was terrified.
Really?
Yeah, I was terrified.
Yeah, you're like... He's like...
Well, I didn't know until afterwards. I was like, did I say
that's probably good, actually.
Yeah, but I mean, so you see stuff like that and you're like, yeah, what is this? What's the point of all of this? Yeah.
Well, you look at some of the
most gaudy.
You can I can walk into a property and almost identify the genre of owner. I'm going to use the word genre because I don't want to steal anybody. But the type of person that owns that property. And then there are other homes that you just go, like, where you'll go, God, I would just give my left arm to own this house. Yeah. Like, God, I wish I'd worked harder because this is where I want to live.
Yeah.
I know there are houses like that. At the beginning now, that 4 years ago, and I want to kind of go into some of the historical context of shooting these videos in 4 years. And this is a nice, interesting understanding of the market. I want to get, from your point of view, which I think everyone would be fascinated to know about, how you see the style of houses have changed, how the style of condos have changed, and how you've seen the prices transition so incredibly over the last 4 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as houses, the one thing I'll say is when I started, I actually feel like houses were, the newer homes were like way better built. I feel like they had really cool finishes and features because they were trying to get those numbers. So like in 2020, a $10 million house in Fort Lauderdale was really, I mean, that was like saying that you're going to a $30 million house today. So to have a $10 million house that was so expensive in most people's eyes, I feel like the builders at the time really put like there were like ridiculous finishes and features. It just felt like a custom built home, not like a spec home.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't see that as much anymore. And what I actually see now is like the houses that are $20 and $30 million are rarely even upgraded. It's like the 09, 08 finishes that I really hate, like that gaudy wood, dark wood. like yellowish colored tile finishes. And I feel like even the newer homes, like you have neighborhoods like Doral, the mansions at Doral, or like those like cookie cutter communities. And I feel like I'm so turned off by that real estate because it's new technically and it's modern, but there's no heart or soul. And when you go to those one-off custom-built homes by those builders, it's just like it really stands out to me. And I feel like I don't see as many of those as I used to.
Well, I think there's a reason why that occurs. And look, I've observed this. So I built my house during the pandemic. And
you built it yourself?
Yeah, I built
it.
I built it. Actually, I took the shell from Mocha, who do a damn good job, by the way. When it comes to home builders, they do some awesome houses. And Alex, I bought it from the shell from him, and he was going to do it as a spec home. And it was a Cesar Molina design. Cesar Molina is a great architect. And I said, I want this to be my house. So we literally like amped the budget up exponentially. But interestingly enough, the end result was that the offers that we were getting in from the house afterwards were through the roof. And I've been offered silly money, but I'm just like, look, I got nowhere else to go. And I also like my low taxes and other low costs. And this is one of the problems that we have. When you build a really high-level custom home, firstly, it costs a lot more to do a custom home these days. I mean, the dollar per square foot cost of building has gone up exponentially. So if you're going to do a custom home, you've got to deliver. And it's very hard to make the margins. At the same time, when the houses are built, once they're built, and you've put all that effort in and all that money, going through the process of finding another one like it is really, really hard. So a lot of sellers aren't selling. Or sellers aren't selling. A lot of owners, you don't see a lot of custom homes on the market now because those sellers do not want to sell. Right. And if they are willing to sell,
ridiculous
very
numbers.
often it's a crazy number, or we'll do it off market. There's a lot of trades that will happen where we simply won't need to advertise it, because once a custom home is done really, really well, I'll walk a client into the house and they'll be like, name your price.
Yeah.
And the seller will name their price. And sometimes, and very often for the last year, buyers will meet that price. Now it's a little bit different. Now the market's cooling off a little bit. Buyers are taking a step back. Interest rates are high. It stings a little bit. Developers are building, but they need to move product because loans are brutal. It's a 10% for a construction loan right now. But I think that we see less of the product because the less of it's for sale. The builders are feeling pinched, so when they're building, they're having to be a little more economical. And buyers don't want to set new records in the market now. In the last 6 months, they're just not willing to set those records. But the buyers are still out there. And I think this is interesting for those buyers who are out there. One of the things that we've talked about is taking all your experience of seeing all these incredible homes, knowing where they are and saying, you know what, you want that? We'll find you one just like it.
Correct.
We'll go together. You and me, Jason and David, will go out into Snapper Creek or into Gables Estates or, wherever, Indian Creek or Palm or Hibiscus, or up to, St. Andrews, or we'll go up to the Royal Palm Country Club, and we'll find you what you want.
Right.
But finding them is a little harder to do. The prices, you were reflecting on the price change.
Yeah, you can see it on my channel just scrolling down.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and it was like the earlier ones. It was like $10 million.
Well, I'm telling you,
a hell of a house.
$8 million. One of the first houses I did was $10.8 million on Nurmi Road in Fort Lauderdale on one of the Palm Isles, and it was just like that was a mega mansion. It was like 8,000 square feet and on the water, great access. And I mean, they were literally asking 10.8. The house now, I think they tried listing it for 25. So I mean, and that was 4 years ago. So and really nothing has changed. It was a brand new home. So now it's just older and it's more money. So the prices. I mean, I remember the first time after I did that house, it was a while before I got one again in above 10. And I just remember every time I got one above 10, it was like a amazing feat for me. And now casually we'll do 24 to 60.
You're desensitized to it because 10 is not a record price anymore. No. Do you want to know something? This is a crazy statistic. $10 million homes and over. And I did this with Anna Bozovic on the last podcast. In $10 million homes and over, we are set to do double the amount of $10 million plus sales in Miami compared to last year. Yep. Even though the market feels like it's softened a little bit, even though people are a little bit more hesitant, even though interest rates are higher, we will do right now most likely twice the amount of $10 million plus transactions for single family homes, which is wild. And mainly because there are those available. I mean, it's become the new norm. when does it get to the point though where people have just pushed it too far? Because you showed me there was a lot of property that was up at like 60 or 50 and it didn't trade.
I think you nailed it. I think it's anything above like $30 million is when it starts to get kind of like interesting. It's like how do you do a comparable for a $30 million house? So when someone is asking $50 million for a 5-acre piece of land in Vero Beach with a mega mansion on it, what are you comparing that to find the right price? It really is whatever the person who wants to buy it thinks it's worth. So that's when it starts to get a little unrealistic. Like I've been to houses, even in New York, where there were $40 million for a condo, a co-op. And it's like, who's going to buy that? What's the point of this? But people are out there buying it. It just doesn't make sense to the normal person anymore. So that's why when I go to those things, I go there and I say the price with a grain of salt because I'm looking in the camera and I'm really saying, yeah, this is a $50 million house, but I could probably get it for 30, like realistically.
So when you're getting calls to shoot this, do you have an inclination at the time that they're just fishing?
No, not really, because usually it's pretty new on the market, so that it has been beaten up a little bit. But there are times where when I see the property, I'm like, oh, this is really nice. And then I'm clicking through, and as I'm clicking through, I'm like, yeah, but how is this price, And so that's when I still do the video because it's a beautiful home, and actually people freaking out about the number is good for me because then I get a lot of comments and interactions. But for the buyer, it's kind of shocking because it might turn them off. They're like, that's 20 million. Well, I can't move to Fort Lauderdale. I can't do this. So I don't like it for that reason. But I feel like maybe sometimes people just, like you said, like they build a home that they love so much and they did it custom and they don't really want to sell, but if they get their number, so they just throw on the market to see if they can get that crazy number. And then that's when I come in and I film the video. So I'm just getting at an interesting time,
Yeah, just getting them, it's almost that if you can get a really crazy number, you're going to get attention just because you've put it at a crazy number. Mm-hmm. But then obviously it doesn't sell.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll see, we're talking about I wanted to get one of the stories because you've seen so much. I wanted one of these stories from you, examples of exactly what you mean by like the product that you were dealing with that you saw just get either something that just went up so much in value and you're like, that's crazy,
right?
Or something that was just like, wow, this is not. I just don't get it.
Well, I mean, I went to a house in in Delray, on the water on Ocean Drive, and it was asking $49.9 million, and it was an acre of land on the ocean, which is like when you're driving down A1A and you just see like the biggest houses you've ever seen in your entire life on the way to Palm Beach, and they just listed the house. As soon as I walked in, the agent at the time looked at me and he goes, yeah, I have a buyer already for 30. I think we're going to accept it. So they're listing at 49, but he has a buyer for 30 and they're probably going to accept it. And that's a $20 million price difference. And
this is a fresh listing.
A fresh listing.
It's almost like there's a story of like the girl who goes home and she goes, Dad, I got to tell you, I got pregnant, and he's freaking out. He's like, what? And then when he calms down, he goes, oh, I'm just kidding. I did crash the car. Then he goes, oh, thank God for that. Like it's just.
Oh yeah, like you break them down.
Yeah, you change the perspective. Right. If you and I think sometimes it's kind of like if you price something really high, like a designer clothes, jewelry, whatever, and then you reduction. That's why it's like the Black Friday sales psychology. Yeah. No matter what it's priced, I'm getting a deal. It must be worth it because I'm getting 20 million off. But maybe if he listed at 35, he would have had offers at 20.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know the mechanics behind what it takes to get good offers in that price range. Maybe that's it. But that shocked me because when I got there, the first thing I thought was like, in my head, this was like a $20 million house. And he was asking 50 and then he got to 30. I was just so confused. But that's one instance. I think another instance I can think of off the top of my head is pretty much, I did I'm trying to remember the name. It's the one of the Brickell condos. I can't remember which one it was exactly, but I made a video about a 1-bedroom, $1 million place because I like the numbers, how that sounded. Like it was a 1-bedroom, it was 1 million. Catchy. It was just cool. And I did that video and everybody was like, I can't believe how overpriced this is. Meanwhile, this is a 2-story, like 1,200 square foot wraparound terrace at the top of a building in Miami. And everyone was freaking out about it. And then they relisted that. So they sold it for like $900,000. They relisted it for $5 million. And it was on the market for like 10 days. So, and that was like 2-3 years later. So the perspective changed because now it's actually a great place.
Yeah, you can't buy anything from $1 million in Brickell or anything. $1 million.
I think that was the first place where I sat down like originally and I called my mom and I'm like, I think I found my dream home. Like I would live here in a heartbeat. It was just like perfect. It was not too crazy, had a crazy view, but it was a perfect size and everything. And then I was like, I wish I had $1 million, but $1 million in my head then got you nothing. So like, or it got you everything. So that was like out of reach. But now it's just like, that's not even.
Did you ever shoot anything which you saw and you thought, well, this is actually underpriced? This is like, this is, I don't know, $8-9 million,
Honestly,
but you're like, wow, this looks better than some of the 20 million stuff.
No, I'll be honest with you. Like it's funny you bring that up because the last video, it's not even on YouTube yet, but the last video I filmed, it was it's a $13.5 million house in Fort Lauderdale, fully furnished with Artefacto furniture, custom imported upgrades, mother of pearl backsplashes, all these ridiculous features, and they're asking 13.5, and it's a brand new. Like you smell the diaper in the house. It's so brand new. Like it's crazy. So
it's on the water.
It's on the water. 100 feet of water frontage. Access out in Fort Lauderdale. It's beautiful.
You get a lot more for your money in Fort Lauderdale.
You do, but this won't even. I mean, if they had it listed for $20 million, I'd have believed it. So when he said 13.5, everything you see, the art, everything is included. I was like, okay, that's really weird. So
yeah, I think I'm seeing now buyers are a lot more real. Right now, as we sit in like going up to June 24, there's a lot more sellers who are more realistic, and I think that there are a lot more people who are like, I want to sell, and particularly developers. Was this a new house? It was
brand new. Yeah.
So again, this comes to that point. The builders right now, if they're building more than one home, and a lot of them are, they're building 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. The construction loan costs, they are feeling they've got to get rid of these houses. So I think that some of the developers are very real sellers, and I think some of the best deals you can get are from these guys because they time every month they're paying interest on these loans, and they want to get these houses so they cannot afford to sit on them, so they're selling them at the right price, at market value, as opposed to the guy who's paying low taxes with low interest rates on his mortgage, who hasn't found somewhere to move to. He's not really a seller. He's like, make me move.
Right.
And that's why, exactly. and of course, the more they have in terms of assets and the more expensive the real estate, there's a saying, everybody thinks their baby is the most beautiful. Yep. Give me an example of something that's like just the most pointless feature that you've seen. I mean, you've seen some crazy houses, but you must have been like, why did they, what's that about?
There's a few, there's so many, it's like hard to even think of. One of the ones where I think one of the first ones where I remember looking at it and going, I actually can't believe people have this or that people live by this, but it was literally a thing where is in the sink, like in the counter, and it's just like a picture of your kitchen counter, but just like a hole in the kitchen counter, and there's a special pot, and you put the pot in there, and it raises with boiling water for pasta. So you put your pasta in, put this pot in, and then it just raises with boiling water to boil your pasta, and then it drains itself.
You sure you weren't in a Benihana restaurant at the time?
I wish that were the case, but no, it was literally just and the guy told me it was $3,500 to get it installed just to boil your pasta. No other purpose.
They must eat a lot of pasta in that house.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're Italian, but it was just like ridiculous. I just saw that and I was like, that's crazy because that's the cost of a brand new air conditioning. Like I just couldn't even fathom that someone would put this in their kitchen counter. That was just like one, and that was the first one. But like I said, I'm so desensitized. So things that maybe in 2020 would have surprised me, they don't anymore. Like frosted toilets where the glass where you click a button and it frosts on and off. Like, you're just like, what the hell? Like, who is this?
Well, it's not the norm until it becomes the norm. Like I remember you talking about nice features. I was always not that bothered about Toto toilets, the Japanese toilets.
Oh my God, that's a great example.
And then I went to a client's house. He invited me to. They were in.
You got splashed up and loved it.
They were in Maryland, and it was really cold. It was wintertime, and I went to his house, and we stayed in his guest suite, which was like half a hotel. And I remember going into the bathroom, and I sat down on the Toto toilet. It was all warm and nice, and I was like, this feels good.
Yeah.
And then my wife looked at me. She was like, "We're buying one of these. That's it. Right? I'm not sitting on the cold porcelain again." So we had one installed in the house, and now it becomes the norm. And every time you go into a house, and even new condos, the expectation raises. Yep. Like if you want to talk about desensitizing a market, the expectation of what people want and need constantly rises, and it becomes like special, and then it becomes normal, and then that's it.
Yep.
Then you've got to find
your way of life
else.
now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I noticed it certainly with materials as well, and that's one of the things that we look at. When we get into different states, and I know we've got a lot of people who are coming in from New York and California, and they buy in Miami. Yep. So I have clients who will come in from Malibu, and they'll show me a picture of their house in Malibu, and they'll be like, this is what I have right now. Can you find me something like this? Do you see a big difference between California, New York, and Miami when you actually go and look at real estate?
100%. I mean, New York is obviously going to be the biggest difference because New York is primarily like those older buildings, whatever. And granted that even if you compare them to the penthouses and stuff, now we have so many beautiful water views and features, and you're not looking at like a dirty old bridge. I'm sorry. But like, it's just, there's different levels. But as far as like houses, that's the one thing, I'll be honest. It's just like Las Vegas. I feel like they have the same kind of thing, is like they have ridiculous quality of builds. Like I go to houses in California sometimes, and I'm just like, you know, we really do not have something this like cutting edge or this extravagant. It stands out to me.
Do you think it's because the market demands it? Do you think it's labor? I mean, I go to, and I know what you mean, by the way, because we have offices in Malibu, Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Pacific Palisades. You know, like I said, I go to that area. I have partners over in LA at Douglas Elliman, and I noticed the house, the build quality at the high level is really like, it's really top drawer.
For me, what I've rationalized it to be is I feel like it's almost, because this is not a stain on Florida. Like I feel like there's definitely a difference between living in California and living in Florida. I would much rather be here, but like I feel like some people have to be in California, whether they're actors or whatever. And I feel like when those actors have to live in a home, they have to make it at a certain level because people are going to be in and out of different calibers. So they have to make it a top tier home. There's no settling for anything in that house. And so then when that house gets resold and I go in there and I see what some people just had to have and what needed to be in the design, what it's going to take to get someone to buy a house like that. Yeah. We don't have that kind of like drive and push, I feel like, here where like people will just buy a nice house. It's very impressive, cool, but there's not like multiple A-listers coming in every single day and it's constantly
paparazzi. Yeah, I noticed that where was I? A couple of years ago, I was shooting a video and I was shooting John Legend's house. And his house was like really beautifully done, like really well done. He had a designer came in from Paris and they did a whole, like really went out on the house, and they didn't cut corners on it. And it was, the joints were tight. Everything was just done really, really well. And at the time I was like, this is expensive. Now I look at these houses and I'm like, they're cheap. Right. And actually see Miami prices have superseded California prices. In fact, there was this recent article that came out that said Miami is now beaten Beverly Hills as the top like luxury town location in America. Like it's number one. And I thought to myself, and I said, yeah, geographically, you know, Miami is very compact, so you know it's systematically nice. You go to different parts of Coral Gables, you go through Snapper Creek or into Ponce Davis or into Gables Estates or Cutler Bay. And when we did the thing about Beverly Hills being beaten by Coral Gables, I did a bit for the Wall Street Journal, and we were talking about Gables Estate specifically, it has beautiful properties. It's systematically prettier, and there's a buck coming. And you know, there's less of the taxes, and there's less of the crime, and less of the homelessness issue, and all these other things that are making people move here. But the one thing that I experience is that a lot of the home buyers are underwhelmed by some of the real estate that they see. Right. It's just there's not enough of it around to show them because the people who have really nice houses don't want to sell them, or it's just like gaudy. Yep. It's just like big and gaudy and not particularly well done, but it's priced high.
It's almost as if you just typed in like modern house on like some kind of AI service and they just like generated a house. There's no like heart and soul. That's why some of them that stand out to me are the ones that like someone like you, probably if you sold your house, it would impress me. It's like when someone actually puts their thoughts and feelings into the build, that's when it like stands out. And I feel like that's what a lot of California houses have. Like I feel the builder in them. Whereas sometimes I'll go to a new construction house here and I'm just like, okay, here goes another exact layout I've seen 100 times in this location that everyone can't wait to get into because it's just a great area, you know?
Well, there's always a saying, generic product ultimately gets crushed. And if you have interchangeable product of which there's like 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 of exactly the same stuff, you know, the same but different, the big, I mean, let's call it the McModern, the big McModern boxes, right? If there's lots of houses, and again, lots of houses over $10 million that kind of look the same, similar, those aren't going to do as well. They're not going to appreciate as well because there's always going to be another one replacing them on that lot that's next to the new house. There's another lot and another lot and another lot and another one, and they're just going to be much the same.
Well, that's why I think neighborhoods like you brought it up earlier, like the Royal Palm Yacht and Country Club, like I feel like that's why those neighborhoods do so well, is because they have that builder, SRD, who builds, like, I mean, I have clients that beg me. They're like, please talk to him and see if he can build me a custom home because of just the build quality. It makes you feel special. Like you walk in, you're paying 25, 30 million, but you're getting a home that feels like 40 million, feels like it. And I feel like that if they would just do something like that and like down in Miami, I feel like the market would be even better.
Well, we do have those. The thing is, they're being built by custom home builders.
Right, they're customs.
And the buyers who are buying them are coming in, they're buying up land, and they're saying, I'm going to build my dream home.
That's
I've got a client right now from Malibu, and he said, look, I think I'm going to have to build my own house. They are out there. I think the key is like going out there. The great thing is that this partnership that we're developing is a situation where if you want to understand what these houses will look like inside and comparing them to each other, a normal agent will just give you a few comps.
Right.
You've seen all of this stuff, so you can really put this into perspective. I've run all of these numbers, so I can put these onto a sheet and put it into perspective as well.
Right.
Combine together actual product knowledge, being in the market, seeing all this stuff, and then obviously the analytical knowledge and me seeing stuff too.
You're getting your dream home at a great price.
Yeah. And so into obviously California has, I want to back to that conversation, California has some beautiful houses. Right. Well done. New York, the condo market in New York, because we often see like the crazy penthouses in New York that are 100 million.
Right. When
you look at the quality in New York, what do you observe there?
So it's interesting because I just feel like there is a different standard in New York real estate in general. I noticed personally there's a lot way higher days on the market. It's almost like people in New York expect things to be on the market for. So I'll go to a house that's just, for example, like $45 million condo, and it's just dirty and doesn't really have a lot to offer, and it's in a great area, but it needs a lot of work. And it's almost like they know eventually that someone's gonna some big like CEO is gonna buy it and just do whatever he wants to it. So they're just gonna leave it there. Where I feel like in Miami we have more of an urgency to sell things, and we just want to get things done. So like, and as far as like finishes go, when I go to those places in New York, usually a lot of them, unless they're like brand new and someone just really renovated them, it's people actually like the older like traditional style. So there's not a lot of like finished marble, and then the bathrooms, but like the kitchens and stuff and the floors are all usually like original, and they like that and they preserve it, and it's just you see a lot different stuff. There's not like one cohesive style in New York. That's the one thing I don't know if I like that, because I kind of like how in California, for instance, everything it kind of has the same vibe. It feels like you're in California. When you're in New York, sometimes you go to some place, you don't know if I'm in Vegas, you don't know if I'm in. It just feels like it's all just like different ideas in one old space, and then you're in an old building in a weird area. Yeah, just not my.
It's a big hodgepodge.
Big hodgepodge, not my type of. I would never.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the one thing that I think I'm observing with Miami, and again going into the fact that this is a conversation revolving around like that luxury real estate, that trophy stuff that you want to watch on YouTube and go, when I win the lottery, I want to buy that condo. The engagement of that, though, is not, it's now, after the last 4 years, I'm seeing in the condo market, it's now shifting. The quality is having to rise. The quality of the condos is having to get better.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at the delivery of the new product there, it is having to reach this new level, because I think that we're also building a lot more big condos.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a lot more, like your video production, you could see in another couple of years from now, a lot more units that are 7, 8, 9,000 square feet, like the Jade Signature Penthouse, which is not normal. It's not, you don't see a lot of big units.
Right. No, I was going to say, like, I mean, one of the things I was going to change in my own like video business was I was going to start doing more of the new buildings coming out, because I think, I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure there was like 60 new projects coming out in Miami, in like the city alone.
It's like 45 I've done, because I run outside of the podcast, I run these independent reviews, it's kind of like a Rob report for new construction condo analysis. And I've reviewed over 35 condos to date through South Florida, and I do them all the time. The truth is I don't analyze all of them. I don't do videos on all of them, because some of them I just don't like.
Yeah, there's a
and I'm just not gonna. I just can't stand.
There's a lot of like here the random 10 story ones, but there are so many.
There's a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where things are going to start changing for us too, because once those are all finished and developed in 2027 or 2029 or whatever, it's going to have a whole different market. Yeah. You know, so maybe we're condo forward now.
Well, we've got some crazy penthouses coming. We've got the condo at Shore Club at 120 million. You've got a penthouse at St. Regis that sold for 50 million. You've got a Cipriani penthouse that sold for like 40 million.
Fisher Island penthouses.
Fisher Island penthouses, you know, and they've got the new Fisher 6 project. Where that was a video that I shot about a month ago. Wow. Where I looked at that new project, and again, that's $4,000 a square foot plus. And And then obviously the Mandarin's 2 penthouses at 50 million each, or you can combine them to 100 million. There's some like
the Aston Martin penthouse.
And the Aston Martin
60
penthouse.
million.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, some of it you look at and go, who buys this?
Right.
Like you said, who buys this $60 million house?
Same guys buying the $100 million condo apartments facing Central Park. Same guys. They're going to have to. I mean, apparently Elon Musk might be moving here. Zuckerberg might be moving. Those people are coming here, and they're going to need the best of the best, of course. Yeah. So there's going to be enough just for all of them.
Of course, those ones make the press, and when that happens, the first thing that occurs is that everyone jumps in it and says, Miami has gone crazy.
Yep.
But these are anomalies. These are like a handful of deals per year.
Yep.
But certainly the $10 million plus stuff is continuing. When you've got, and again, I wanted to get into the engagement, the marketing side of the business, because this is like the product is fascinating. What's almost more fascinating is how people are engaging with you with this. Because I know that people have come to you directly. They've seen these videos and they've said, you know what? I want to buy that.
Yeah. No, I've got a great story actually. So, we were discussing it earlier. So a lot of times people will call you, and you can kind of hear there's a baby crying in the background, and they're probably the calls coming from like a random area that you've never heard of, and they're like, "Yeah, I saw that video of the $50 million house. I'd like to buy it all cash tomorrow." So you get a lot of those, but through the years of filtering through that, I actually had one guy. I'm not gonna say his name, but one guy called me, and he was like, I saw that house you did. I'm looking for basically a condo in Brickell with a pool on the balcony. And I was like, okay, yeah, say no more. I didn't ask him for any other information because every lead that I get, I take it very seriously. And then after a while, you can kind of figure out if they're real or not. So I followed through with him a year and a half later of following up with him every single day. He would call me all the time and say, I don't like what you were wearing in your last video. I don't like the car you're drop a better car. So after a while, it just became like almost like a friendship because I didn't think he was serious. And then one day he wanted to meet with me at a condo in Miami. So I met with him. And we get there, and this is like when I realized the channel was more than just like video marketing. It can actually be like a serious CRM thing where I get great leads. And so I met with this guy, and we go look at the condo, and the agent leaves, and he stops me in the hallway, and he looks at me and goes, "Listen, Jason," he's like, "I've watched your videos for 4 years now. You're doing a great job. And I know you're good at making videos, but are you good at being a real estate agent? Can you sell things? Like, are you good at making what I want happen?" Like, he wanted a specific number. He's like, "Can you get me that number?" And so that was when I really that first challenge of like stepping back from like just making videos to like being someone who is a professional. And that's when I realized the potential of what I was doing, because through all those people that I've probably pushed away over the years that were maybe real or not, finally I get an example of a real one. And now I know that I have to start addressing them properly, and so it started that whole thing for me. So
that's transitioned you from just being what I originally perceived was as a marketing guy, a guy promoting other people's listings, and you kind of blew me away because you said, I've never charged $1 for an agent to shoot a video of their house. I don't charge. I shoot the video, and I was like, wow. I think your purity of what you're doing this for the right reasons. I think if anybody watches this, the one thing that you can pick up from Jason is that he's a very unbelievably honest human being who you really are. You don't have an agenda. You're not secretly trying to like manipulate like a chessboard player around to do deals. You shoot real estate. You're interested in it. You've amassed a huge amount of information and knowledge by shooting all these videos. You've picked up on a lot of things. You've realized what is good and what's bad. But you've never really monetized it. And so obviously we started to have this conversation. This is something that we would do together. We would say, okay, you know what? I actually, on the often side, will get calls from clients and saying, I need to make that's the reason the podcast is called Better Decisions. I need to make a better decision. I want to buy a house or a condo, but I need someone to really guide me through the quagmire of product so I don't buy the wrong thing. And I think that one of the elements that you've captured now is being able to, not just shoot it, but also now to be able to market it.
Right.
And marketing is it's a machine. I mean, there's a board behind you talking about funnels, and we constantly, we have 770,000 people retarget to every single month through our site. It's huge. People come for the content. I know there's a lot of people who aren't real. They just want to sit there and like look at cool real estate. But then this guy, he was a real buyer.
He was a real buyer.
He
and
came
now
through.
we're good friends. He's almost like a mentor to me now. He calls me randomly. He'll be like, "Have you made any money this month? What's going on? Like, try that." Like, he actually gave me advice in my last video what I could do differently, say more detail about the property, because he's like, you've sold me, but for the next person who might want to buy something, they don't want to just hear you, because I crack a lot of jokes in my videos, and I'm just trying to be like natural. But he's like, it might help you just to give a little bit more detail about the finishes and the products, kind of like what you were telling me about knowing what you're talking about. So I'm trying to implement that a little bit more without losing who I am, but also I want people to watch and actually have some insight and to learn more, not just like watch and just kick back, just actually have some insight into the real estate.
It's being able to ascertain the value, because when you're shooting amazing real estate, there's two aspects at play. There's the geography, which is the land value of it. If it's a house, it's the land value of that house, or if it's a condo, it's the value of that location.
Of course.
And then the material aspects of the property, which is, the materials used, the wood, the lighting, the sound systems, the marble, the stone, the whatever they're using. And then obviously combined with the functionality of it and how it compares and competes to other things, which is super important.
I mean, even sitting here, when you just said that, I was thinking in my head, like, it might even be a good thing to add in the videos, like, before just getting right into it and just come look at this nice, beautiful home, almost doing like a dissection of the asking price. Like, is this worth it? Why is it the way it is? Like, that would be, I feel like people would actually like to see that.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, look, when we sell new houses, one of the things that we do when we're selling a product is we actually give people basically a spec list of all the materials that went into the house, because a lot of individuals, a lot of people who will watch videos don't understand what things cost to build.
And what it takes to get it.
Yeah, and the time. So you'll watch and you'll look at an amazing house or a condo. To renovate a condo, to finish a condo, my wife owns Design Solutions, a big interior design architectural firm. They will spend, once someone buys a brand new condo in any of the new products, she did actually a unit, she did 2 penthouses at Jade, one at Jade Ocean, one at Jade Beach, and she's done at Jade Signature as well. They took a year to finish those units because they spent another 20% on top to finish them to a very custom level. And that took a lot of time and a lot of money. And I think at this certain level, one of the things that the currency that a lot of buyers work to is not just money, it's time. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Ken Griffin, these guys aren't trading in dollars. They're trading in hours and minutes. Because they make so much. So a lot of the product, finding something truly special and being able to appreciate that it's truly special, is something that if you buy it off the shelf and it's done for you, you've just saved yourself 3 or 4 years in the process. And if you are going for, let's say, a penthouse and it's a one of one, how long will it be before that penthouse next becomes available? Might be 5 years, might be 10 years. We got a trade we did with a house. The lady lived in it for 30 years. We call it a legacy sale. It's something where a generation will hold it and they won't sell it. And that's why sometimes it's good to go and explain this parcel of land. You can't replicate this. You will never be able to buy this land again. And if you did, you're going to have to buy it from this person. And it's going to be, 2-3 times the amount, which is, I think, why the values went up so much in 4 years. Because we actually have quite a finite amount of land in Miami. It's not that big. You probably noticed in California, you can go to Laurel Canyon, you can go to Malibu, you can go to Pacific Palisades. There's a lot of land, and there's a lot of big houses. We don't have that much space. And plus, to your point too, it's like I feel like in California, you can go to a neighborhood that's 5 minutes away from the neighborhood you really want and pay a quarter of the price. Where I feel like in Miami, it's actually really hard. Like really anywhere in Miami, that's anywhere that anyone wants to be, you cannot pay. Like there's no shortage of price or cheap. It's kind of systematically expensive now.
It's just expensive,
Entry point into our markets for a decent home is like, I don't know, I want to say $4 million. At
least,
but new homes, entry level is really 5 in almost anywhere.
Especially, and then you want to be on the water because it is South Florida. You have a boat. Then it gets even more narrow, So then it just gets more and more. You want to be in the private community. It gets even more narrow. And so that's when the prices really start to go up and you have to pay for what everyone wants.
So looking at all of this, and I think we've unwrapped a lot right now. We've gone through the condo market, gone through the housing market, talked about California and New York and Miami. How is in terms of marketing, your engagement?
Right.
How has your engagement changed? I mean, as you've grown this channel, from a marketing perspective, from the benefit of someone who might pick up the phone and say, you know what? I'm going to call Jason because Jason should be doing a video of my house, because the views you get on your videos are like, what's the most views you've had?
I think the most views I've had on a video is like 1.3 million.
1.3 million
on a YouTube
views.
video. Yeah.
On a YouTube video.
Yeah, I've had like 20 million on a TikTok and stuff, but yeah.
So you've got videos with 1.3 million views. Yeah. You've got a lot of your videos which have 3, 4, 500,000 views. Yeah. So you're getting a lot of eyeballs on the real estate, and some of it obviously will be aspirational buyers. The engagement that you're getting right now, are you seeing it change much? Has it changed much over the last 4 years?
Yeah, I think so, because when I first started, a lot of it, because no one really knew who I was, so they didn't know what I was talking about or who's this guy saying these numbers, So it originally was like, you don't know what you're talking about, or Florida's going to sink, or like all this craziness.
Do you get a lot of that? There must be a lot of those comments.
Yeah, because when I click the profile as a 5-year-old, you know what I mean? So I take it with a grain of salt, but now I think the engagement has changed because the comments are more like, compared to your last video, this is actually a reasonably priced. It's like more like realistic feedback for my videos. And I think since people have known I've been doing this for a long time, because I don't go to every single house and say this is the best house I've ever seen. So when I actually go to a house that I really like and I'm like, this is an amazing deal, and like, this is a great house, I feel like the people in the comments are actually listening. They're like, you know what, yeah, because the last video you showed, I wouldn't have agreed with that, but this is so it's like a lot more engaging. It's not like frivolous, stupid comments every once in a while. So the engagement's a lot less because there's not much crap, but it's the quality that I appreciate. So I think it's actually gotten a lot better. And I've sent tons of referrals to agents that have reached out about the property. So, and tons of closings have happened from it. It would have been nice to get like a nice gift or referral, but I don't always ask for them. But I've had a lot of agents call me and say, the buyer saw your YouTube video and came, which is just crazy for me to hear that somebody with that kind of money is sitting in their living room watching one of my videos,
Well, I think it's what occurs is like over time consistency.
Yeah.
The one thing that a lot of industries lack is consistency. You've been incredibly consistent over the last 4 years.
And I'll never stop.
And I think that now the market is actually, timing-wise, it's caught up with you. $10 million is no longer an aspirational price for a lot of home buyers. It's a very possible price. We have the market. The wealth shift into South Florida is huge. It's significant. And because many people are moving in from out of state, and I think it's important to understand, if you're watching this and you're a homeowner and you're thinking about listing your home, we've actually had this discussion. Myself and Jason will be working together. So if you have a very expensive piece of real estate that you want to sell, Jason will be involved in shooting a video. We will do our video. Jason will also do one as well. And again, these eyeballs will help propel the exposure of your property. It might be a friend of yours that sees it. It might be a friend who sees it and refers it to another friend. It might be, there's all sorts of referral ways that occur. And just give me an example, actually, a working case where you've sold a house and how that house came to actually get sold through your video.
I have a great hilarious story, actually. So this, I remember, I'll never forget, I got an email one day, and it was an email with no subject. So that's a red flag right there. But it was just an email with no subject, and it said, "Hey Jason, I'd like to buy a condo in Brickell for my daughter." And at the time, it was I wasn't getting a lot of those, but I was like, you know what, let me just see where this goes. So I meet with this girl in the lobby of the Paramount and in Brickell. And she comes in, and I literally, one thing about South Florida is like, there's no reason to judge anybody by the way they look, because anybody could be anybody with any kind of money. So she comes in, didn't even care about, she wasn't dressed as a person with millions of dollars, but I didn't care. I was like, okay, whatever. So I show her and her daughter a couple condos, and we're going days after days looking at different condos in Paramount in different areas, and we're finally at a table where we're about to sign with the sales office, and she just looks at me and she goes, I don't know if I really like this one. And I'm like, there you go. I knew you weren't real in my head, like whatever, but I was like, that's fine. At least I learned the process. I'm in this world. Fast forward, this was in 2021. Fast forward, I go on vacation to the Caribbean, and I get COVID, and I'm in lockdown, she texts me and she goes, listen, I don't know if you're still doing real estate, because it was like a year since I had seen her. She's like, I don't know if you're still doing real estate, but I'm now looking to buy in New York. Do you know anyone in New York that does real estate? And I actually had a connection in New York. So I reached out to the connection. And I said, I don't even know what this girl's up to, but here's this lead. Good luck with it. Let me know if anything happens. And so I spent like the worst, like Christmas lockdown and isolation in the Caribbean. I come back, and the girl calls me, the agent I gave the information to, and she goes, well, hey Jason, just want to let you know that your client, the one that you gave to me, just bought a $15 million house in Dumbo, which is like the posh area of Brooklyn Heights. Yeah. And we actually have a 35% referral fee. And so I didn't even ask for that, but it was just crazy to me that this random subject email that I gave to turned into like, I think that the check was like $50,000-$60,000 for a referral that I had no part of. So it was just like an amazing, that I was shocked. It still shocks me to this
dare
day.
I say, you deserve that. I mean, at the end of the day, your relationships go on. And again, I got an email from a client yesterday. They said, we haven't spoken for 15 years.
Yeah.
Hope real estate's working out for you. I'm like, yes, it's all right. I'm doing okay.
We just built our custom
and they were like, yeah, I know you are. You're fine. But we want to talk to you because we want to sell our place.
Yeah.
These long-term relationships have value. And over the time, the 188,000 subscribers you've got, I'm sure,
a couple million in there.
Sure there's a lot of people who follow you, who are buyers, and who are ready to engage, and who are looking. And if you happen to be watching this, because you've seen this through Jason's channel or my channel, pick up the phone and give Jason a call.
You got a killer and a marketer. I mean, like,
and
what better team do you want?
We will help you. I mean, again, this is the beauty of it. Now and again, paths cross, and so many of the relationships I've had through the podcast have developed because we've legitimately been doing this for the right reasons. I created this podcast to become smarter. You created your channel to legitimately share and with an education process of real estate at a luxury level. And you stuck with it. And I take my hat off to you. I know how hard it is. It's a lot of work. Coming from someone who's produced 895 videos, I know it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But within that, if you're watching this and you are a buyer or a seller, pick up the phone. Our information is below. Jason, thank you so much. I look forward to doing many deals with you. And thank you for watching. As always, stay tuned for the Better Decisions podcast. New episodes coming soon.